when I first started this channel, I did a video called my 10 overused fantasy novel cliches. That video has become my most viewed. Thank you, by the way, for everyone who's watched it, everyone that's loved it, everyone that's hated it, because I know that video has caused very interesting debates. I decided to do a new one. I decided to go back and revisit this list and see what I would change and see what I would do now. So here we go. Let's start at 10. Alternative and parallel universes and worlds. I get it, this is more to do with YA fantasy, but you see a lot of books that have a parallel world of, another world, and it's like, it's been done. There are a lot of books that have done this, and it annoys me because usually it's very ill thought out. It can be done very well. There's a video game called The Longest Journey that's like it's a graphic adventure, and it does this parallel worlds, two worlds next to each other thing extremely well, but most of the time it's done very poorly. 9. Magic schools. Harry Potter did it first, I think, though don't quote me on that, but I do kind of despair when I see it's set in a magic school, it's set in this, it's set in that, and that annoys me, because again, it's usually done very poorly, not very well thought out, or it's too fanficky. It's just one of those little things, because this has been done to death. 8. Enchanted things. The deus ex machina of finding an enchanted item that just happens to be what you need. TV shows are guilty of this, movies are guilty of this. It could be a weapon, it could be a sword, it could be a book, it could be a glove, it could be a cape, it could be a key ring. It could be anything, but it just happens to be enchanted, and it just happens to be the thing that they've had all along that they didn't realise they had, or they didn't know what it was, or they just happened to find it in the area. It's like that annoys me, because it seems an easy way out of a situation. And don't get me wrong, I love an enchanted sword to death. Can we have something new, please? 7. Elves. Dear God, elves. Elves and elves. I have no problem with elves. I like them in Lord of the Rings and a few other fantasy novels, but elves. It just seems a very easy go-to, and we need another species in our fantasy world. Let's have elves with pointy ears, and they'll look like Link from Legend of Zelda. 6. Bearded wizards. I know that's my goal, but this is a different thing. You have Gandalf, you have Saruman, you have Dumbledore, and Merlin, and countless other bearded wizards, and they're great, but I've literally gone through thousands of fantasy novels online and looked and just found things, and I'm like, so the bearded wizard saves the day, or this guy, and they're always the Merlin clone, and it just becomes very cliched and very annoying to me. It's like, you have Merlin in your book. 5. Vampires. Okay, so this is more urban fantasy. Particularly amongst people who self-publish, although I did find a very weird fantasy novel that was about vampires. It was terrible, by the way. They've been done, and done, and done, and done, and just killed. Progressively killed by betrayal. The vampire warlord, the vampire lover, the vampire this, the vampire that. And 99% of the time, none of these characters need to be vampires. They just don't. They really, really don't. 4. Heroes. Heroes are the epic hero, the guy that saves the day, or girl, I would like to say, although less female representation in fantasy. The false hero, the hero that is a hero by chance who saves the day, the proverbial Luke Skywalker, the proverbial Harry Potter, and this can be done very well, but again, 90% of the time it's done so badly. Especially amongst, this is a YA thing as well. I've noticed in YA you get the hero that saves the day, and they just irritate me. The hero or heroine, usually they come across as a bit Mary Sue-ish, just because of the nature of them, I think. The writer's own voice, they save the day, they're the hero. 3. Good versus evil. The world isn't black and white. The good and evil are two extremes of many shades of grey. Good people have done horrible things in the name of the good, and evil people have done horrible things thinking they're doing good, or doing good for themselves. Good and evil are shades of grey. There's a whole spectrum of grey between the two extremes, and sometimes it's like, You read a fantasy novel, the villain is a villain. His motivations are not really a point, he's just evil for the sake of evil and wants to rule the world, or destroy it, or bring about the end of an old world. And it's like, oh, okay, can we just have this? And then you obviously have the good hero, going to the previous point, who saves the day, who is such a do-gooder, it's annoying. It's kind of like retro Superman, you know, the goody-goody Boy Scout versus the evil corporation, or the evil warlord, or the evil king, or how many fantasy novels have I read where they've basically just copied Lord of the Rings? 2. The Chosen One. This is in my first video and it still stands. I hate the Chosen One thing. You know, the Chosen One, I get it. And again, it can be done very well. All of these points can be done very well, but there comes a point where you're like, they just happen to fall into it, or it just happens to happen. It frustrates me sometimes, because often the Chosen One is, again, a Mary Sue. And this goes across all types of fiction, be it a Chosen One actually said, the Mary Sue quality of them where they are perfect and impeccable. Again, this is a YA fantasy thing, I think, more than anything. Although I think books like the Shannara books kind of suffer from all of these, which is why I hate them. And my big number one, and people are going to hate me for this, I'm sorry, but my big number one is dragons. Again, done very well, but 9 times out of 10 they're done very poorly. I think Game of Thrones does dragons very well. I think Lord of the Rings, I think Aragon, despite its flaws, does dragons very well. But the amount of books where basically it's... So again, I think this covers... I've seen it a lot with the self-publishing books, the books that look a lot like the Game of Thrones, where it's about dragons. I would like to see it done differently. That's my thing right now. I would like to see that done completely differently. I would like to see a new take on a big fire-breathing thing. It gets to a point where you're like, oh, how many times can I read the same book? And I get it, I do get it. Every genre has its own cliches, its own thing, its own little things that make that genre that genre. It's not done very well 90% of the time, and that's a shame. So, tell me what you think about this list. Tell me what your opinions are in the comments below, because I'd love to know. As always, please like and subscribe, but I want to know those comments. I want to know what you think. If you're writing fantasy, if you're involved in fantasy. I'm writing something that has vampires in, and I'm also writing something that has dragons in, but they're done very differently to a normal portrayal.